What's going on, rejects? It's Greg Oba here.
And it's John Humphrey here.
Arr! Arr! We're gonna continue our retro movie review series of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Heck yeah. Pirates, Part 3.
At World's End.
At World's End.
Directed by Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg.
Hey, I would watch that.
Anyway, so this one is the toss-up between the worst ones in the franchise thus far. If you haven't seen Dead Men Tell No Tales, is Part 3 and Part 4. Okay, so this one, I know our retro review series has been a little long. We're going to do our best to keep this one shorter today.
Brevity.
Okay. This one, oh boy, oh man, I just don't like this movie. I gotta be honest with you, man. There are things in the, I just think from beginning to end, the tone of this movie is terrible. It's so dour, so gloomy, from start to finish. It's just the exact opposite of fun. Why would you want to sit through 3 hours of no fun the entire time?
Yeah, or without enough fun like put in to keep us interested. Because the second movie's like darker, but yeah, like
well, there's no life in this movie.
I feel like they brought the same amount of humor to the third movie as they did the second movie, but the third movie is like so much thicker that like those jokes pop up like once every half hour.
Yeah,
you know, like. I get what you're saying. I honestly, like, it's been a couple days. I don't hate Pirates 3, but I acknowledge all the problems with it, and I'm not sure I would ever want to sit down and watch it again. But I do think, I don't know, like, everybody prepared me for this terrible movie. And so I found a lot of elements that I like about it, and what's so upsetting to me, what's disappointing to me is, like, they don't come together to form a cohesive whole.
No.
And that's a bummer, you know?
Well, I think this movie's just so it's over convoluted. It's got so many elements that I don't like a lot of the elements. I'm not a fan of what they do with Keira Knightley becoming the the Singapore Pirate King or whatever the hell her title is specifically in that.
Yeah,
I find it rather I don't know. It felt more like we gotta make her a pirate too. Shouldn't we do that? Yeah, let's do that. Let's make her a pirate as well. I guess like just to sum it all, there's no other way for me to put it other than the film is just dull to me. It's a really dull movie, and the action sequences are not that interesting to me either. It's like very sporadic for what I find interesting. It's like, oh, here's a cool shot every once in a while. And there are elements that I keep thinking I'll find cool or latch onto. Like, I kind of like Johnny Depp having, the going a little crazy and seeing, like, more Jack Sparrows everywhere he goes. He's kind of has a split personality thing going on. Yeah. And there are elements of that I kind of like.
Yeah. At
the same time, though, there's nothing here that I walk away from going, I really like that film. I really like this aspect of that movie. Because even the finale is just it's so overpacked, and they got this build up to a Calypso the entire time. And she does jack shit. Yeah. She creates it's kind of cool when she becomes a giant. Yeah. You're like, oh shit, maybe all this dark, depressing crap is gonna pay off to something. Yeah. And she does nothing. She creates a whirlpool for them to fight in, and that's all she does. She creates a whirlpool.
Yeah, that's a bummer, because she became, like, I forgot how much I loved watching her do her thing. Well, Naomi Harris playing Tia Dama in the second movie, and then in the third movie, and I was like, oh, cool, they made her role bigger, this is great. I love watching you, and then, it sort of peters out, and a lot of things do in Pirates 3, because it's so thick, and it's so long, and none of the characters at all, not that they're supposed to be having a good time, but like everyone is just having a shitty time in this movie. And it's hard to kind of get through after a while because everyone is angsty. Like everything about Pirates 3 to me feels like angst. Right down to the construction of the movie. It's a lumpy movie, and that's that's what's upsetting to me, like I said, is I think the production values are still great. I think the way it's shot is still great. Good. I think a lot of the cast is still great.
Well, that's why I always bring back the problem to being the tone of the film.
Yeah, and I think their ideas are good, but it's just the execution, like the tone and the proportions of like how the plot is structured, like
And
that
for a
plot,
film
lurches, man.
For a film to drag on to 3 hours, like it's like 10 minutes shy of 3 hours. For a film to drag on for that long and still feel like, how'd you not flesh this out better? And some parts are just kind of confusing. We had to pause the movie at a couple points to go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I think it gets confusing because the film's hard to keep your attention span completely engaged throughout.
Yeah.
Because it lacks life. Like, as I was watching it, I remember at one point I did make a comment going, Johnny Depp's the best part of this. He still is the best part.
He still is the most lively thing in that movie.
Yeah, because the only times a genuine laugh occurs is from Johnny Depp doing something that's kind of funny. Like, the only moments I could think of that I enjoy are a couple of Johnny Depp jokes. Like, I love the bit with Barbossa with the telescope. I mean, what's that called?
It's like a
telescope, and the Johnny Depp pulls out a ridiculously long telescope to overpower him.
Yeah.
And the film goes into, like, like when I looked at this film in retrospect of how the first one starts off in reasonably grounded pirate world with some mystical elements, and then the second one keeps humor in the first half of it and gets a lot darker in the second half, and then has even more mystical elements here. This one just flows with just pure darkness, so much mysticism.
See, I don't mind the mysticism, but I do mind when they start to ignore, like, the rules of their universe and the laws of physics, and they just stop caring about how things work. And that's an even bigger problem in the fourth movie, but... Yeah, it's like they're fighting in that whirlpool forever. And I'm like, Calypso doesn't seem like she wants to just give you a stage to fight on. Like, what's happening here? Or why aren't you just falling into the abyss? Like, there's a lot of weird stuff. I feel like this movie could have greatly benefited from 2 or 3 more drafts, because I think all the ideas are there. I don't hate any of their ideas. I like the whole, like, pirate council thing. Like, I get the through line they're going for, and I do kind of respect the 3 of these movies, having seen them all now, as like one long piece. But each one gets a little more meandering and a little less disciplined each time.
Well, yeah,
the third one.
It's the third. This is the problem with the third, because like we said, like it does complete the story. It completes the trilogy of Pirates of the Caribbean. Because if I watch 1 and 2, I have to watch part 3, even if I don't like. Even though I like, the film is dread to me. It's just a dready film, and I dread watching the third one as well. It's just so far from enjoyable to me. But at the end of the day, it does wrap up the story. Like, you feel like you watch the complete story, and I could see, like, the comparisons to, like, when you watch The Matrix Revolutions. Like, you can't. It's not exactly a fun movie, Revolutions, and it's definitely the weakest of the 3. But you kind of just got to watch it to complete the story.
Well, and I think this movie made up a lot of ground for me, partly because of, the hype around it was just like, you're going to hate this. And I don't. But, I feel like the hype...
Watch it a second time.
Yeah, I'm curious about how I would play a second time. Because the first time, I was like, there are a lot of... It's like Spider-Man 3 to me. I'm like, this is a bummer, because there are a lot of redeeming factors. And I don't think that it's like... Pirates 3 still feels like they were really trying. Like, everyone showed up to that movie. So as dour as it is, as thick as it is, it seems like they really went the mile to put it all on screen. And I did get swept into it a time or two because of that.
You did?
Yeah, a couple times.
I couldn't recall it. I could only think of, like, tidbit moments that I liked. I can't think of a sequence that I really enjoyed. Even Giant Whirlpool finale... I couldn't just fully get hooked into that.
There were times.
I'm like, this is dragging on, and that's what I mean. It's moments that work, but there's never a full sequence or scene that I'm like, that was good, that was great. I can't think of one full thing.
Yeah, that's a totally fair criticism. I don't disagree with you on, but I do. In a weird way, even though I don't think it's necessarily the right way to go for these Pirates movies, just given what they are and where they came from, partway through, in an odd way, I sort of started to respect, like, wow, it seems like they took the time to throw down on making an epic. Like, not just a blockbuster, but they threw down on making an epic with ships and splintered wood. And even though the third one has more CG, I do appreciate the Lord of the Rings approach, where it's like, we're going to try and do a lot of makeup, and we're going to try and go to a lot of places and sets and make this feel world spanning, because even at its worst, the scope still feels massive.
Oh, it does.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll give it that. I don't think by any means it's a lazy film. I would never say that about At World's End. I just think its execution is just leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
Oh, yes.
Because like they have all this. I feel like this could have been simplified. Like if you break down the basic plot of At World's End, it goes, we gotta rescue Jack Sparrow so we can take down Beckett and the East India Trading Company, who is now ruling the seas. When you're watching the film, you're kind of forgetting about all that because there's so much other crap going on left and right. Keira Knightley with her thing, Orlando Bloom with his dad, whatever the hell Jack's motivation is, and all this, and then Barbossa and the pirates, and it doesn't ever feel cohesively put together to the point where I'm on board for the plot. I'm on board for what's going on. So by the time they take down Beckett, and granted, I like the moment when Beckett's taken down. I do love the part of how Jack Sparrow decides to let Orlando Bloom become Davy Jones. I like that they had that touch in there. I even like the moment when the Flying Dutchman comes up. Orlando Bloom has a whole new change of clothes.
Yeah, he's got a new bandana.
Yeah, but I like that. And when they work together and they throw Beckett off, like how the plan comes into full fruition, where they take down Beckett's ship by using the Black Pearl and the Dutchman, and that whole slow motion sequence of Beckett facing his death, I thought was really well done. Even though that still being said, I didn't feel like a victory. I didn't feel in my heart victory,
After all of that, you just kind of feel like falling over.
Long-ass finale, like a super long-ass finale.
Like, watching that movie is kind of like being there, because once it's all done, you're just like, oh,
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I just want to go to bed.
Yeah, I don't even feel like celebrating. But, I don't know. I get all the complaints about this movie, but I do think, especially watching it back-to-back with Part 4, I think there are a lot of redeeming factors, because Part 4 is what I thought I was going to get out of Part 3. Is what everybody prepared me for, was this different thing. So, I don't know, as going in, and I was watching more reviews this morning, and it seems like everybody kind of hates just anything past the first one. Like, even the second one, a lot of people just don't like that movie, and I personally
love the second one. I love it.
I really like the second one too.
I would say I love the second one, but sticking on point with this film right here, and a couple of other, because I feel like it's easy to complain about this film, and I want to try to take some time to point out moments I like. I actually really like that super cheesy moment when Will... and then there's that other plot line. Will and Elizabeth aren't together anymore. And I'm like, you're doing this thing where we know they're going to get back together in some way. Just let them... Just go there. We don't need to have them be apart. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I do like that cheesy ass moment when they're like, marry me, and then Barbossa's marrying them in the middle of this crazy battle.
Well, because finally you got back that weird back and forth between, like, the fun, kind of out-of-place stuff and the swashbuckling adventure. Like, that's a scene that kind of demonstrates what I think people love about the series, that the first one had so well. I feel like everyone loses the reins on the balance, each time. The second one a little bit, and the third one a lot. But I thought that scene. I thought I would be annoyed by that scene from the trailer, and I actually really liked it in the movie.
And I could nitpick so much, but anytime we saw a problem that we just pointed out when we were watching, like little nitpick stuff, like when they're in the whirlpool and Davy Jones and Jack are fighting on top of that hole, and I'm thinking, how the hell is Jack balancing himself? I'm also thinking Davy Jones could appear anywhere. How come he hasn't killed Jack?
He walk through stuff? Like, when did that happen?
There's this whole fight that they're having, and then at one point he just takes his big, crab claw and then snaps his arm. Like, this whole fight, he could have easily killed Jack. This entire fight, it would have been simple. We'll walk in the park for him.
Yeah,
he doesn't even have a heart for Jack to penetrate. He could just go up to Jack, let him stab him, and then kill him. Like, there's a billion different ways Davy Jones could have killed him.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Davy Jones is just... I don't know why he didn't make that choice to do it. I don't quite get why Keira Knightley is so good at sword fighting all of a sudden when she has nowhere near the amount of experience with fighting people as any of the countless people she's fighting in this
Will
movie.
trained me for like a week. How long is it between those two movies?
And so I could get hung up on that, or even the whole. Even when you see all the pirates come together, where they're giving their items, and giving their items,
Pieces of 8.
the 9 pieces of 8. Even that scene kind of annoyed me, but I feel like the nitpicks. Every time we had a nitpick, I'm like, this film has much bigger problems than any of these nitpicks. That's just how I kept feeling. Like, there's much bigger problems than any of these things.
I feel like part of what's proven to be the gift and the curse, at least of the first 3, the Gore Verbinski Pirates movies, is that they take their time. And in the first one, like, that was part of what made it so charming, is it's a real movie. It's not just, a big extravaganza. And 2 and 3 take their time. But that doesn't always work in your favor, especially when the plot is getting so convoluted. And it's like, you can nitpick, a lot of little things, but it doesn't. Ultimately, those all pale in comparison to what they did with the structure and tone. Because the thing is, a lot of those nitpicks could have worked, perhaps, in a lighter movie like Pirates was before. It's like you could forgive a lot of these lapses.
Because cartoony moments don't work in a film that takes itself so dark and serious.
Such a war movie. Like, it really does. The third one especially feels like a war movie at sea. Like it's sea life and cannonballs and we're heading to our death at any time, boys. So you can't just get wacky while you're doing that.
And I guess to wrap this up, a couple things I do like the ending with Jack, how he loses the pearl again. It's a funny moment. He blows off those 2 women, and his relationship with Gibbs is so funny. And I even like the scene with Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley having to say goodbye to each other.
I do too.
And I appreciated the post-credit scene because it adds to the plot. And I didn't really notice that until this time around, because Davy Jones and Calypso have a scene where he's talking about, I came back to the island, you weren't there. But
I thought their story was good.
Yeah, and then they have a post-credit scene where you see Will Turner return. So like, oh, he's not the Davy Jones that... he's not the captain of the Flying Dutchman that Davy Jones turned out to be. He returns for Elizabeth Swann to see his child and all that. So
and she returns for him, though.
Yeah, she
returns.
That's
the whole thing. Is like,
right.
Calypso didn't come back.
Because it's in her nature.
See, she got a flow, man. She got a flow. I don't know.
Yeah, I would give this film like a negative 100 Gregs. I don't like it. I just don't. Just letting you guys know. Don't like it.
I'll give it a half a John.
All right.
I'll give it points for trying. I'll you know what, too? Call me crazy, but honestly, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom left a bigger impression on me in this movie than part 2.
I'll give it that. Sure.
Like, honestly, their performances I thought were at least, even though, again, angst. I was like, well, at least you're standing out of this movie again.
Yeah, saves the movie. All right. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. Check out our exclusive perks on Patreon, my friends. John's John Humphrey on Twitter and Instagram. Social media manager at Blumhouse.com. We're on our way to review the next Pirates on Stranger Tides. And then we're going to watch Dead Men Tell No Tales tonight.
Hell yeah.
Catch you guys soon.